What's happening, brass nerds? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here. And every once in a while, someone in the comments will ask me about what equipment I'm playing on. And while I normally don't spend a lot of time talking about equipment, I thought it'd be fun today to take a little time to introduce you to my instrument of choice, the Martin Committee, on this exciting episode of Trumpet with Bob. All right, before we dive into the history and characteristics of my favorite trumpet, I think it's important to just make the point that in the past I made an entire video about how equipment is not really that important in playing the trumpet, and it really has more to do with the individual musician driving the machine. So, by no means is this an advertisement for Martin Committees. I don't even necessarily recommend you play this instrument. The truth is as a trumpet player, your job is to find the instrument that is most reflective of the sound that you are trying to go for and of the feel that you want from an instrument. So this is definitely not for everybody. It's not an advertisement. I don't care what you play. Honestly, people can get really amazing sounds out of every trumpet. So, by no means do I recommend you get one of these horns or anything like that. All I'm doing is making this because people ask me and I want to deliver on those questions and take you on a little journey. All right, so the Martin Committee trumpet is a particularly famous model and brand of trumpet because of the jazz musicians who were playing them mostly in the late 40s and into the 50s. This includes most notably Miles Davis, who played Martin Committees throughout his career, but it also includes such great musicians as Chet Baker, Dizzy Gillespie, Clark Terry, and many others. Kenny Dorham played an instrument that's a close cousin to the Martin Committee, another Martin instrument. And in more modern days, you'd hear musicians like Wallace Roney and now Chris Bode playing these trumpets. So for that reason, they became particularly famous, not only for the people who played them, but also for the characteristic sound of the instrument. The Martin Band Instrument Company started making the Committees in the mid-30s or so, and they made them until 1971. The instrument was originally designed by Reynold Schilke, but there was also a committee involved in deciding what the specifications of the instrument would be. Now, I'm not going to be able to remember all these, so the committee included Fred Berman, Buddy Berrigan, M. Thomas Cousins, Dana Garrett, Rafael Mendez, Jimmy Nielsen, Reynold Schilke, of course, Otto Kurt Schmeisser, Charlie Spivak, and Jack Teagarden's brother, Charlie Teagarden. However, Reynold Schilke always claimed that it was a committee of one, that he made it. But whatever it was, it ended up being a particularly interesting kind of horn. And according to my old teacher, John McNeil, it was the first American-made brass instrument, first trumpet that was made that wasn't in the direct line of the old French Besson models. So I'm going to take a second now to introduce you to a book that you may or may not be familiar with that I recommend everybody who is in the jazz trumpet world check out. This is John McNeil's The Art of Jazz Trumpet. This is one of my favorite jazz trumpet books. John McNeil was my teacher at New England Conservatory. He recently passed away, unfortunately. Really amazing teacher. And he put this book together. It's a beautiful overview of jazz trumpet in general. It has a characteristically very funny history of jazz trumpet and many of the people involved. It also deals very much with jazz articulation, which I've talked about on some of these videos, as well as certain other elements in jazz trumpet playing. So if you're not familiar with it and you want a real great overview of jazz trumpet and some of the history involved, check out John McNeil's The Art of Jazz Trumpet. This is an old edition, so I don't know if the cover looks different now, but you'll be able to find it on the internet. In fact, I will put a link in the description to this book. Now, the only brand of trumpet that John McNeil mentions in this book is the Martin Committee, and he says in this book, he says, jazz trumpet players have used a wide variety of equipment, but one trumpet model, the Martin Committee, has been especially popular. This model, whose name comes from the simple fact that it was designed by a committee, was the first modern trumpet manufactured in the U.S. not modeled after the French Besson. So there you have it. McNeil talks about the particular characteristics of this instrument, I'll show you real quick. This particular trumpet I got a couple of years ago in around 2016. This is from 1945, and it still plays great. One of the beautiful things about playing a brass instrument is that the instrument will last a very long time. So there's nothing wrong with playing a used instrument, for example. You don't have to buy a new instrument. This brass has held up for 70 years now, which is pretty spectacular. You'll notice a couple fun things about the Martin Committee. First of all, they have these water keys that are sort of traditionally trombone water keys. Doesn't really mean anything, doesn't do anything, but just kind of a funny feature. You will also notice that there's no brace in the tuning slide here, which presumably has an effect on the nature of the sound of the instrument. The rest of it is far beyond my understanding as a trumpet player, and you'd have to talk to a trumpet builder or trumpet repair person to understand the specifications of why this instrument has such a unique kind of characteristic to it, but that is the nature of the beast. So, this is an instrument I got. They can be quite expensive now, the Martin Committees, because they are rare. They were made many, many years ago, and they are not being made anymore. So supply and demand, blah, blah, blah. You get the gist. However, this one I got for just over $1,000 because it looked like it had gotten run over by a truck when I first got it. It was in very rough condition, unplayable, but I figured I'd roll the dice on it. And sure enough, I brought it to Josh Landris in Midtown Manhattan, and he fixed it up, did a little valve rebuild, and this has been my workhorse, everyday trumpet of choice since then. I love this horn. I'll give you a little demonstration of how it sounds, but I'm going to do a little bit more history on it. All right, so let me tell you something. I'm going to go back in time, all right? We're going to have a little fun here. So I have this trumpet. This is my main trumpet. I don't have very many trumpets. I'm not a trumpet collector. I have what I need. But I do have two of these, all right? So here's my second one. This is from 1954. It's another Martin Committee. This is the second trumpet that I have. I have very few trumpets, but these are in the collection. And one of the funny things that I noticed is the Martin Company gave me a little, with this horn, came with the original card for it. Now this is funny because the Martin Committee trumpets are traditionally known for their dark and smoky tone. If you think about Miles Davis playing on any of his albums in the 50s and into the 60s, but in particular things like Kind of Blue or Sketches of Spain, although he was using flugelhorn on some of that stuff, but nonetheless, you can imagine his kind of dark and smoky sound. Certainly Chet Baker, you can imagine his sound in the 50s. However, what's interesting is here on the card, they were advertising this horn as being especially useful for extra range, extra power, which we never think of Martin Committees as being about extra range and extra power, but certainly if you listen to Dizzy Gillespie in the 40s, he got a lot of range and a lot of power out of this thing. All right, so let me talk a little bit about the characteristics of this. Now, if I play on any trumpet, I'm more or less going to sound like myself. Once again, as I said in my equipment video, trumpet equipment is more about the specifics of the sound that you're looking for and the way that you want the trumpet to feel, more than trying to really completely shape your sound. More of your sound is going to come from your face and the way that you play the trumpet and the time that you've spent practicing the instrument than it is going to come from the instrument itself. But nonetheless, I'm sure you're all waiting for me to play this thing so you can hear what it sounds like. It sounds a little something like this. So one of the things I love about this horn is that it doesn't slot as cleanly as some more modern horns or certainly old Bachs and things of that nature, but it means that I can be very expressive in the way that I'm bending the notes around. Now, that comes with pluses and minuses. A lot of the negatives of what people talk about with the Martin Committees is that the intonation isn't very good. Now, I've been playing this thing with big bands for many years, and it's worked great. I can play in sections. I've played all kinds of soul music. I've played all kinds of different music, just about everything except for orchestral classical music on this thing, and it works very well. So the intonation isn't so bad as to be a deterrent for me, but I can imagine if people are used to playing more modern sounding horns, then the flexible slotting may be a problem for them. But this is what I'm dealing with, so I enjoy it. I like a little quirkiness in my instruments, and there you have it. So now I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to improvise a little bit over the whole range of the instrument so you can hear what it sounds like in the upper register and so on. Now in this instance, I'm playing the trumpet fairly quietly and with a certain sound that I like, but I can push this thing pretty hard and get a little bit of a different color out of it. That might sound more like this. So you can see there's a lot of different colors I can get out of this thing. If you push it pretty hard, you can get a certain sound out of it. If you're playing it quietly, it's going to have a different sound, just like all trumpets do. All right, so there you have it. I'll give you a little taste of the other one just for fun. I'm playing on, in case you're curious, many people ask, this is an Austin Custom Brass TA1. It's a V-cup mouthpiece. I've always loved Trent Austin's mouthpieces, so be sure to check them out at austincustombrass.com. They have all kinds of different stuff, and Trent Austin has a real strong command of these different mouthpieces and things of that nature. They're also selling instruments, but I've always played Austin Custom Brass mouthpieces since, I don't know, 2010, something like that. I love them. Here's the other horn, very similar. So there you have it. I really love these horns. They do have a sort of quirky characteristics to them that you get used to, but just because of the nature of the way that I like to play, I always embrace kind of the expressive, quirky characteristics of an instrument. I like to get to know an instrument and be able to play around with the unique characteristics of that instrument. That being said, if you're going for just, you want to play the trumpet, I mean, there's so many great trumpet brands and makes and models out there that you almost can't go wrong if you've got fairly, high-level professional instrument. And with the trumpet, they're really not that expensive as compared with things like baritone saxophones or bass clarinets and things of that nature. So if you think about it, some of the most expressive trumpet players throughout all of history, including people like Woody Shaw and Dave Douglas, for example, in a modern context, are playing, Bach Stradivarius horns. If you think about Chet Baker, he started off playing the Martin Committee, and then he switched to Conns and other instruments, Bachs, things of that nature. Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw and Lee Morgan played the Conn 8B. They had a particular sound, and then they would play other instruments through their careers. So one thing that's really important, and this is what I want to leave you with, is that if you're going to check out instruments and you're trying to find an instrument that speaks to you, go try them out. Go to your local instrument shop and play some horns and see what they feel like. Do not rely on who's playing what horn, because that's not going to be necessarily what is going to speak to you, either in terms of the sound or in terms of the feel of the trumpet. So by no means do I recommend you go out and buy an instrument based on what other people are playing or what other people like. I'm just making this video for fun because people ask me about it all the time. But once again, go out and check out some different horns, because depending on what kind of music you're playing or what the sound is you're going for, you're going to have different experiences. I remember I was playing a rehearsal a couple years ago with my friend Kai Sandoval, great trumpet player, and he tried out this Martin Committee. We switched horns for a minute, and he was like, I can't play this thing at all. It doesn't have a very modern feel to it. This is a medium bore trumpet. They also come in large bores, but they're quite a bit more expensive. And I really love the feel of the medium bore. That was something that most modern trumpet players are playing medium large or large bore trumpets. And I just happen to really like the feel of a medium bore trumpet. I like the way that this thing drives. It's not for everybody. I mean, I've met a lot of people that are like, I can't play this thing at all. It doesn't feel good to me. And that's totally cool. That's the beauty of being a musician and trying out different things and finding what works for you. But at the end of the day, if you play a regular run-of-the-mill Bach Stradivarius, that's a workhorse trumpet that really a lot of people just get a beautiful sound out of and is an expressive instrument and covers a lot of range in terms of the style of music that you might be playing. Certain trumpets may work better for certain styles than others. But again, if I can leave you with anything, if you're going to try to find a trumpet and you're interested in it, go out and play a bunch of horns and try them out. and see what works for you, because everybody has a different experience, and that may change over time, and that's totally cool. You know, people play all kinds of different instruments, and they get a great sound out of it. All right, gang, so there you have it. That's my equipment. It's a Martin Committee from 1945. I got another one from 1954 that I don't play as often, and I play a Austin Custom Brass V-Cup mouthpiece. If you would like to hear this horn in action, you can check out my album Revenge of the Cool. It came out in 2020. During the pandemic in a very unfortunate timing. But if you want to check it out, it's on Spotify. You can also buy a vinyl copy for your own in the description below. You can find it on my website. You can also get CDs if you still have a CD player. You can also hear me playing this horn on every other album that I have with my brass band Dinganeck, or any of the music that I put out on the internet. All right, gang, I hope you had fun with that. If you're looking for lessons in jazz or trumpet or any other number of musical instruments, you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com, or find us on our website at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com. And if you would like to support the creation of new videos like this one, and get a couple of special perks and some bonus content, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Ridgewood School of Music. All right, gang, I hope you had some fun with that, and I hope you have a wonderful time practicing, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.